Today, we're going to dig into a piece of code that's kind of hiding in plain sight all across the internet. It's a library that quietly but powerfully shaped how we click, drag, and interact with the web, jQuery UI.
So, you might be thinking, a library from 2007? How relevant can that really be today? Well, you'd probably be surprised. A quick search shows that jQuery UI is still running on nearly 800,000 websites right now.
And we're not talking about some old, forgotten blogs here. No way. We're talking about massive sites you definitely use. I mean, think about it. Pinterest, PayPal, IMDb, even parts of Netflix. It just goes to show you how deeply this code is woven into the very fabric of the web.
Okay, so what is this library that's had such a long life and is still powering so much of the internet? Let's break it down.
The official definition is pretty straightforward, but a really good way to think about it is like this. If the original jQuery library was the essential toolbox for working on a web page, then jQuery UI was the set of pre-built, powerful tools that let you create a really polished, slick user interface without having to build every single little thing from scratch.
But to really get why this was such a huge deal, we kind of have to travel back in time. What was it actually like to build a website back then, and why was this library such a game changer?
The goal was simple, but honestly, for its time, it was absolutely revolutionary. Before jQuery UI, trying to create something as basic as a pop-up calendar or a draggable icon, well, it was a total nightmare of complicated, browser-specific JavaScript. And that's exactly the problem jQuery UI set out to solve, making these interactive features easy for any developer to just use.
It basically handed developers a ready-made toolbox full of goodies. So let's take a quick tour and see what was inside, starting with its core interactions, widgets, and effects.
And this right here, this single line of code is where you can really see the magic. Seriously, look at that. That's it. That one simple command finds an element on the page and boom, it's instantly draggable. This took a task that could have been dozens, maybe even hundreds of lines of complex code and just boiled it down to a single readable line. That was its superpower.
And it went so far beyond just dragging. You could make elements droppable to build out Trello-style interfaces, you could make them resizable or build sortable lists, all with that same incredible simplicity.
Then you had the widgets. These were fully formed components that saved developers just countless hours of work. I mean, you needed a search bar that auto-completes, or a pop-up dialog box, or a calendar for picking dates. jQuery UI had them ready to go right out of the box.
And it wasn't just about how things worked, it was also about how they looked. The library came with a whole suite of visual effects, letting developers easily add animations and transitions that made websites feel more alive and professional without needing to be some kind of animation wizard.
But of course, in the world of technology, nothing stays on top forever. And that brings us to the next chapter in this library story, its shift into what the developers call maintenance mode.
So you can see the whole journey laid out here. It launched way back in 2007 and had an incredible run for, 14 years? Then in 2021, the team made it official. jQuery UI was shifting into maintenance mode, a new phase that continues today with its latest stable release.
So what does maintenance mode actually mean? This is a really important point. It does not mean the project is dead or abandoned, not at all. Instead, think of it like the focus has just shifted. The team isn't building shiny new features, but they are still actively fixing bugs and making sure it works with modern browsers and the newest versions of jQuery.
And a perfect example of this commitment is how they've handled browser support. In a recent version, they made the smart call to officially drop support for old browsers like Internet Explorer. Now, the focus is 100% on keeping it compatible with the browsers we all use today: modern Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and Edge. It's a really practical move for a mature library.
So, when you put it all together, what is the lasting legacy of jQuery UI? How did it permanently change the web for the better?
Well, let's wrap it up. First, it completely simplified complex, interactive web development for a whole generation of us. Second, it really popularized the whole idea of a component library. This concept of pre-built, reusable UI pieces is basically the direct ancestor of modern tools like React and Vue. And finally, its graceful shift to maintenance mode isn't an ending, but a really great model for the natural life cycle of successful software.
And that brings us to a final, bigger question to chew on. Watching a technology like jQuery UI mature so gracefully, it makes you wonder which of the tools that we rely on every single day, the ones we think are essential, will become the respected, foundational legacy of tomorrow.